So, not sure what I said last time. It was a couple days ago. But I have a vintage double wedding ring on the frame today. I got it basted down, the top part of it, on Monday. This seems like a really big double wedding ring to me, but according to the measurement, it seems like it was part of the national average. Now I have the top basted to the batting and the backing. I have the backing attached to the frame both at the top and bottom. This quilt will float, even though it's more quilt than I like to float. Because of its rounded bottom, there's no way to connect it and have even tension, so I'll just have to be very careful as I go down. And in my case, I'll probably depend on some 505 temporary spray adhesive to help keep things flat until I baste it. You can tell right away if the quilt is flat or not when you spray baste on the batting, because it's flat and there's no puckers in it. So I'm going to use that as a little added tension to replace not having the bottom of the quilt under the lead on the leader. Also, I'm going to be doing originally I was going to be doing ruler work on the wedges, on all the pieced wedges, and to be perfectly honest, I have less time this week than what I thought. So I'm going to do an abridged version of that. We have several different types of block patterns for double wedding ring. One of them fills the whole arc, and then some of them just fill the little melon slice inside, but not the pieced part of the arc. So you could do ruler work on that and just do the decorative design inside the solid piece, or you could do one of the designs that covers the whole melon wedge with the piecing, and that's what I'm going to do today. So it will eliminate all of the ruler work for this quilt, so it should go faster. The pattern that I'm going to be using is Topaz, and Topaz was designed by Patricia Ritter, and it's a really beautiful pattern. There's two different components to this digital design. One of them is the melon, and the other one is that funny square. I don't know what you call that square. So there's two specific designs for that. We're going to inset those, and so that's not going to be it's going to be new as far as double wedding ring for the video part. One thing I wanted to say was, because I'm also going to be doing something else that's a little different today, and I've talked about this, but I don't know if I've actually released the video where I've talked about it, but I keep this sample, this quilt sandwich, and it's basted at the top, and I just keep it rolled up on a swimming pool noodle. And whenever I need to do a test of something, I go ahead and just use my leader clamps to clamp the quilt portion on the frame that I need to sew on. And then I can make notations on this quilt sandwich of what was successful. And what I was testing in this particular case was this spaghetti thread. This is a long staple Egyptian cotton. I've kind of gotten away from cotton a little bit because it lents up the bobbin so bad, but I'm not going to be using this in the bobbin. This is I believe a 12 weight thread, which is the thickest thread that you can run through a machine and through the needle without couching it. So it's going to give a little bit more of a pronounced look to the quilting design, which should be beneficial in this case. It should show up really well. And because I couldn't, well, there's two things. I didn't think there was enough thread on any given spool to do the whole quilt, and I couldn't decide which one of them I liked. So obviously the choice was to just keep rotating the threads off of the machine. So I'm just going to rotate these colors every once in a while. I'm not going to do the quilt from left to right. I'm just going to go around and fill in some of the wedges, so I could do a couple with one color, switch the color out, and then switch to a couple other blocks and wedges, and then switch to another color. the this particular thing that I had success with, I used I believe a 90. It's a 12 weight thread. I used 80 weight bobbin thread. Now that's unusual. Normally we balance the thread for the top and bottom, and that way you get good tension. This thread is so thick you need to do like a counterbalance, and so it's a 80 weight bobbin thread and a 12 weight on the top. So there's a big difference, but it allows it to sew beautifully still. And I believe the needle that I used was a 9014 top stitch needle. I did lower the top tension on my particular machine to 3.25, which is just down from its standard 4.0. So I don't know off the top of my head who makes this. Wonderfil makes the thread. They come in these variety packs, and I think I have 4 or 5 different colorways. This particular one matches the colors in the quilt, and it should liven up this quilt a little bit. I was less in love with this top when I got it than I was when I ordered it, but I think it's going to be fine. I think the thread and the pattern is going to help tie it all together. So if you are practicing something new, create a quilt sandwich that you can take on and off the machine, play with new thread, and also we're going to do the expedited version, so there'll be no ruler work on this particular quilt. I have another double wedding ring, actually just got it in today. It's older than this one, but it seems more delicate, and I think I'm going to like the way that one works better with the ruler work. So we're going to switch the camera and get right to stitching. As I was saying earlier, some designs for a double wedding ring would just do this inside melon, and then all of this would be pieced work or some other type of quilting. That would come all the way out to here. This particular quilting design, the design goes all over this whole melon, so that would encapsulate these pink squares in the forepatch. And so when the design goes around the circle, then it would do the white part of the forepatch. And so all of this is done speeding up because we don't have to do all the ruler work in these outer edges. And then the center part will go in the white wedge, and with this thread it should show really well on both the melon units and the central block unit. So I'm going to go ahead and move the camera again so you could see what the design looks like as we input it on the IQ screen. This is very much going to be me moving around with the pieces as I do different colors of the thread. I'm going to start at the melon wedge at the top and get those done so I can roll the quilt up a little bit. We really won't have to be doing any realignment because I'm going to be marking each particular unit as I sew it. It's going to be sewn as a block. So I'm going to design sew quilt, start new. We have a work in progress, which was me practicing. Do I want to replace it? Yes. Do I permanently want to erase it? Yes. And I'm going to reset my time. So we're going to be working on a block pattern this time, and we're going to trace the size of it on the quilt. We're going to mark on the quilt. So I'm going to choose mark on quilt, and sometimes it helps to lower the needle almost down to the quilt to help get precise markings on where the block begins and ends. So I'm going to start clicking OK. I could use my clicker now for this also, but I'm just going to do reference points at every seam of the wedge as I go around and make that whole melon ball shape. Now you could mark more or less depending on your comfort level and how much time you want to take with it. You could certainly do more to get the most accurate placement of the quilting design. And I'm sure as I go, I will do less. And when you get to the end, you can hit close block and we'll finish those last pieces. So my block is completed. Now I can hit finished, and I know it's Topaz that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to go up to the T's and just fast forward a little bit. And it looks like I passed right by it. Twirly girl. Oh wait, there was. Topaz, double wedding ring, block B. And the only thing you could have to pay attention to, I'm going to go ahead and, I've selected it, is if you want these to continue in a circle, then I may need to flip that. And so it's scaled at 120%. I'm just going to reduce it a little bit so it fits in the block a little bit better. And then I'm going to move it over just a little bit. And now I'm going to go ahead and hit accept. Finished. Now I can touch a property to see, touch the pattern to see its properties, but I'm good with that. And I'm going to go ahead and hit sew quilt. Select the first pattern to sew. Hit continue. And before I get too far, I'm going to reduce my tension 3.25. I'm going to put it on manual. And I'm going to hit sew quilt. And the machine is going to go over to its start point, which will be wherever it will be. And somehow managed to get my thread wrapped around the foot. Oh boy, I'm just making a mess. Okay, so I've got my reminder set. I've set my stitch length to manual, so I'm going to go ahead and hit continue, start. So I know you can't see the design from back here. So I'm going to check what I did wrong, and then I'll move you in so you can see it stitch out. I have input the dimensions of this wedge. I'm still using this light turquoise thread. I think I'll probably change it after this one. But I have the wedge done. I've reduced the top tension to 2.75 on this particular quilt. Seems to be working better, and I did change the needle. I have in a brand new top stitch 9014. So I'm going to hit sew quilt. It's going to go to its start position on this block. Didn't put my thread fast enough. So it's going to go ahead and sew out the design again, and I'm just going to repeat this process until I have all the melons and the wedges done. But you can see the design is covering both the pieced section of the quilt as well as the center melon. And now that I'm looking at it, I may end up stitching in the ditch in this white portion of the wedge. The center one I won't need to do because it's completely covered. The next unit I'm going to do is one of these star center block portions, and I've changed the thread color again. I'm on kind of a grape color on this one, and so this is going to all be on white, so it's really going to pop on here. So I'm going to move you to the top so you can see how I will move the machine and just mark all of these points of the curve until we get that shape on the screen. So again, we're design sew, start new. We're going to be working on a block pattern. We're going to mark it on the quilt, and I'm going to be marking the points using the OK button, or I could use my clicker. So I'm going to start in one of the points of the white. I'm just going to keep moving around this white center section until I have all of the points marked. The more accurately you position these marks, the more accurately the design will sew out where you want it. And close block. So now you can see on the screen what my wedge shape looks like, and I'm going to hit finished. I'm going to hit T for Topaz and bring in my Topaz block. And the only thing that I want to pay attention to now, this would be kind of important. I want to do all of these the same. So you can see this is a bilaterally symmetrical design, and I want to keep it that way because this could come up rotated. But I want to keep it this way on all of the blocks just so it has that sense of symmetry to it. It's a little close to a couple points, but I think it's going to be okay. So I'm going to hit finished, sew quilt, select the design to sew, and continue sew quilt. We're going to our first point. We're on regulated stitch already, or the manual stitch already, so I don't have to adjust that. I'm just pulling up my thread from the bobbin. This particular design is going to take less than 3 minutes. I'm still on the first full row of wedges. I had thread get caught in the bobbin last night, and I was not in the mood to try and fix the problem. It created an error and the machine froze. And then this morning I realized it was probably just a thread in the bobbin, which it was. It was one of the spaghetti thread, which is thicker, and so it really froze up the mechanism. Since then I have slowed down the machine some just to make it stitch out better, and I'm not having any thread breaks or any issue with the thread. Now, I said this was an Egyptian cotton thread, and I don't know why. When I used to use my previous machine, I didn't have so much problem with lint, but on the Bernina, cotton seems to create so much lint in the machine, which is why I primarily sew with isocord. But I'm going to be using the clicker this time. This is a presentation clicker like they would use in a classroom, and I have the USB stick loaded into the IQ tablet backing. So I'm going to go ahead. I just finished doing one of the wedges. Now I'm going to do one of the center units. So we're starting new just like always. We're doing a block pattern, and I'm going to start recording in the corner, and what I'm going to do is just arc the machine, and instead of having to touch the screen each time, I'm going to go ahead and hit my clicker, and so you'll hear it clicking over and over again, beeping that I've done it. I don't know what I did. Design sew, block pattern, mark on quilt. So you'll hear it clicking. And when I get back almost to the end, I hit close block, finished. And now it's time for me to select my design. So I'm going to hit T for Topaz and open that up. And I see on the screen that it is rotated. So I'm going to go ahead and change the rotation on that. And now it's matching the rest of the blocks. So I hit finished, and I'm going to hit sew quilt, select the pattern and continue. Sew quilt. Now it's going to move to its start position and do my single stitch, which pulls up the bobbin thread. And I've got the bobbin thread in the top in my hand. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. Trim my thread. And now I'm going to let you watch as this block sews out. You can hear my machine is moving a little bit slower. So the remaining time on this design is 2.4 minutes. But since I've reduced the speed of the machine, I'm stitching the entire blocks without any interruption. As far as the color changes go, I'm sewing about 2 or 3 different units with each color and then switching, trying not to have any of the colors sew next to themselves. I have 7 different colors to work with, so I'm just going to continue switching this out. One thing is, because I have this loaded horizontally rather than vertically, when this was on a bed, they're going to look different than even what they look on the machine right now as far as color placement. We're going to show you this one close up. I have my threads in my hand. I'm going to hit start. This one is just under 2 minutes. You can see here that the spaghetti thread really does show up quite significantly stronger than what a regular 60 weight thread would. And I think it is kind of just exactly what this particular quilt needed to tie everything together. I think it'll give it a funky, fresh look. And there you go. I have the first top wedge done. I have the side wedges on each side and the main blocks done for this whole row. So now it's time to go ahead and roll up. And I'm just going to continue with this process until I get all of the blocks done. I will have to decide on this pink and white square on the outside perimeter. There won't be any design because that is always part of the melon wedge and there's no wedge here. So it's not that big of a piece. I may just leave it off because the binding will be enough stitching on there, or I may just do that partial part of the block using a clipping block just to get it in there. We'll see how sick I am of the quilt by the time it's finished. But I'm going to go ahead and roll up now and keep working on these blocks. Well, I got this one finished. I still have to trim the scallops of the double wedding ring, so that's going to take a little bit longer than what I wanted to use today to get that done. I don't have also the binding made for this, so it'll probably be put in a stack for a little while. I do have a friend who does my binding whipping for me, so I usually machine it on and she will hand whip it. We trade services. I started quilting about 1991, so it'd be nice to know when you started. I started to take a class once. When I was teaching, the teachers were allowed to sit in on another teacher's classes for free, providing there was room. And one of the other teachers was teaching a double wedding ring, and I bought templates to do the class, but after I sat in on the first class, I backed out. And this was early on when I was quilting, but I was just a little intimidated by the piece to the arcs of the curve. And so I never did get back to trying to make one. I believe the templates I bought were Charlene Jorgensen. This was a way back. I remember they were pink templates, which I still have in a package upstairs. But a double wedding ring is a quilt that I love, but it's a quilt that I've never made personally. In my life, I've never needed a double wedding ring. So probably if I were going to do it, I would either do it in batik or something romantic like Robin Pandol fabric. I always liked her fabric. But it's nice to finish this old one. I got this one at an online auction, and what I did to make the quilting really stand out was I used a special thread. It's called spaghetti. What I did was I bought every one they had. I bought different color packs that they had, and this is by Wonderfill. And so I ended up buying 5 different packs, and then I just chose the one that most matched the quilt that I was using. So that would have been this one. And I just kept rotating through the thread, doing 1 or 2 designs in each row and then changing the thread out. The thread is a 12 weight thread, and it is the thickest thread that you can use through the machine. Anything thicker than that, then you're couching the thread using the foot, but it's not feeding through the tension gauges and through the needle. One of the other different things about this is you don't balance the weight of the thread with a exact type of thread for this weight. So this was a 12 weight. What I counterbalanced it with was a Deco Bob, which is a 80 weight. I believe is also by Wonderfill, and that helped the not be too big of a knot, and for whatever reason it worked. I made some other adjustments to the sewing to make that work. I reduced my top tension. Normally I sew at a 4 on the Bernina Q24. I reduced that to 3.25. I did use a 90-14 top stitch needle. in the needle. I reduced the speed of how fast the manual sewing was, because when I use the IntelliQuilter, it runs off manual mode, and my manual mode is somewhere like 1,000 something. So I reduced it to I believe 780 or 680 on the speed of the machine that it's sewing, and I had a lot less problem with thread breaking. Other than that, it was just changing a lot of thread colors as we went through, and you're repeating the process each time because you have to block out in the program where the block is that you're sewing. So each time I'm either repeating the inside of that or this whole melon wedge. Now that's another point on the design aspect, the digital design. I used a design called Topaz. It was created by Patricia Ritter, and what I found in my searching for a pattern that I wanted to use was there was generally two kinds of double wedding ring designs. There were kinds that did the whole white part of the background, that square, and then there was kinds that did the whole melon wedge, the piecing and the background. Alternately, there was a kind that did the background portions only, so it would have done the white square and then the inside white of the melon wedge, but not the piecing. So then you would have to go back over the piecing and just do ruler work or some other type of work in that pieced section. Originally, I was going to do piecing, ruler work on the seams, and then just do the design in the two parts of the background. But I thought it would take longer than I had this week. I actually have 3 different double wedding ring projects, so I will be showing one at a later date, just using the background section with the design and then doing some kind of ruler work or other work in the arc. The other one that I'm going to be doing, I believe, is with the 770 using a embroidery formatted quilting design. For that one I have a smaller sample, and also this is almost a queen size, so there's it's a lot of sewing in between just the video shots. I personally don't like to teach videos here that the end product is not usable. So more often than not, you're going to see me do something that will end up being a finished quilt because I'm a quilter. I know a lot of people are like really big on just the samples, and they have stacks of just sample squares, but I just don't want my time to be spent making a bunch of sample squares. So I like the idea of finishing a quilt, even in this case, that I'm finishing somebody else's quilt that I purchased, but I like the continuance of completing an actual project. It's more motivating to me than just squares. Even though it takes me a lot longer, I still prefer that. So we went over the different type of thread that we used this time, which was the 12 weight. I've been anxious to try this in a project, and I really like the way the pattern stands out. I don't think that I would do it all the time, but it is another nice little thing to have in the tool chest, in the tool belt. So it really does pop, and I think there are times when you could use a 12 weight, a 60 weight, and maybe an 80 weight all in the same projects for different reasons. But this really stands out, and I think you'll be able to see that even from there, that you can really see where the quilting design is from a distance. The reason that I chose different color threads is because 2 things. One, I didn't think one of these spools was going to be enough to do the entire quilt. So then if hello? My mother saw a cricket in the house. I had to get it right away. So I apologize for that. Now I have no idea what I was saying. Anyway, I didn't think there would be enough thread on the spool for the whole quilt, so I chose all of them. That was one reason. The other reason is, aside from the hot pink or the white, there really isn't any continuity in color for this particular quilt. So hot pink would not have been my choice to do the whole quilt, and even if I had enough of it, it's not my favorite color or version of even pink. So this does have a nice hot pink in it, but I just like the way that the mix of colors pulled out a variety of colors. Also, there's something kind of interesting about the way that these fresh pop of colors kind of help modernize or freshen the vintage fabric that were used in here. And this really is a very scrappy quilt. It's got several different time periods of fabric in it. There are some 30s, which is what initially I thought it was going to be a 1930s quilt top when I ordered it, but it really has other time periods as well, so it's very scrappy. So those are the reasons why I used the color thread. As far as why blocks, one of the things I don't think many people realize is that Urban Elements has a wide selection of blocks like these that were designed specifically for a specific type of quilt, the double wedding ring in this instance. There are others. The only one that comes to my mind right at the moment is double Irish chain or the single Irish chain. But there are other types of blocks. There's a huge selection of blocks, circles, corner units. Urban Elements does very well in completing collections. In fact, one of my favorite things about them in the early on was their design bundle sets, where it would have a full-size panto. Sometimes they would have sashing that matched blocks, circular blocks, setting triangles, corner triangles. It was a monthly club that they did for many, many years, so there's probably 40 or 50 or more, I've never counted, of those design sets. And as far as I know, they were the only ones that were doing complete sets like that. But there's at least 10 or 12 double wedding ring patterns specifically, and they're in the two types, two categories that I mentioned earlier. And these are available as paper or as digital. Using the pantograph grids, which is a plastic sheeting that goes on top of your panto, you could do the same type of placement that I did with the digital system up front. So you would mark on the pantograph grids with a dry erase marker where the wedge is or where the melon shape is, and then you would place your block shape underneath that and have it centered and stitch it out from the back, knowing that it was perfectly centered on the front of the quilt as well. So with the pantograph grids, you could use any of these types of designs that I am doing as digital. And I have done some videos showing that as well. Not on the double wedding ring, but I have shown pantograph grids videos. So I'm just curious. I told you that I had never done a double wedding ring. I'm curious at how many of you have attempted the double wedding ring, if it was something that you were afraid to do and then got over your fear of doing it. And it also, because it's in my mind, it is specifically geared towards a wedding gift. I mean, that was, in my understanding, its original purpose was to be gifted to somebody that was getting married, maybe part of her trousseau, maybe the bride-to-be even did it, or the mother of the bride. But I'm curious if you did it in that tradition, or if you've made one at all, or if it's one of those things that maybe you've always put on the back burner because you were just a little bit afraid to do that. But I've always loved double wedding rings. So let's see what else I wanted to say. It's really nice when you have things like this. You could go on to the Urban Elements website. They have a really great feature called Wish List. And you can, after you create an account, which you would definitely want to do, you could keep track of items that you've looked at in categories like the double wedding ring and picked your favorite. And then when a sale comes up, you can just go in and add to cart. Last time I checked, you were also able to email your wish list to somebody or send them a link to your wish list in your family, your friend or family, and they could gift you with some items off your wish list if it happened to be your birthday or an anniversary or a special occasion. So wish lists are really great for that reason. There's also another really great thing about the wish list, and that is that it keeps track of your purchases. And you think, well, so what? I don't want anyone to keep track of my purchases. Well, on many occasions, I will see a design that I have already purchased and I want to buy it again because I liked it and I'd forgotten that I got it. Right on the website, when I'm signed in, it will say previously purchased. So I know that I've already purchased that. And that's one amazing thing because I have done that before. I have tried to purchase something that I've already purchased. The other thing is I'm digital. And if something happened, like lightning struck, or my house burnt down, or I got a new computer, or I lost my hard drive, the website keeps track of all your previously purchased designs, so you're always able to go to your account, My Downloadable Products, and you can re-download your designs anytime that you need them. So those two things right there are worth the price of just logging into your account. If you don't do that, then it's nearly impossible for us to track a purchase that you've made 7 years ago. So I always like to log into my account and see what designs I have. So I've rambled on and on today more than normal, but this project is finished for now. I hope that you enjoyed seeing the 12-weight thread. I hope you enjoyed watching how the blocks were input. It's a very easy process just to map them out on the quilt, and then IntelliQuilter or whatever program you have, we should size it to fit there. You can make all kinds of adjustments as needed. I did rotate every single one of these designs so that they were always the same. This middle portion was always upright instead of going horizontal. I only had to change it maybe 5 times out of the whole process, but it's something that is nice to do. Again, you could do all of this on the pantograph grids as well. I don't know what I'm doing next. I have another block of the month that I'm getting ready to start. Radiant Flowers, I believe. I have another double wedding ring to do on the embroidery module. I'm anxiously awaiting for the cooler temperatures to come in, the fall, so I could have the windows open and breathe a little bit better. And have more tea and cookies. If you didn't know, I love Earl Grey tea and I love cookies. So I've always thought maybe my family mixed me up at the hospital because nobody else in my family drinks tea but me. So I thought maybe I was mixed up with a traveling English family through birth. So I know I'm a little crazy today, disoriented, but you'll have days like that. You're going to have that. So thanks for stopping by the studio today. I hope I didn't ramble too long. And I think that's it. I think that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. Take care of each other. Take care of yourself. And I'll see you next time here in the studio.